In the last episode of Stay Mindful with Dr. Evelyn Davis, we talked about awareness and intention, about slowing down enough to notice what you need and why it matters. And as we continue this New Year, New Me series, we're exploring the 8 dimensions of self-care and the practical ways that self-care shows up in everyday life. Hello and welcome to Stay Mindful with Dr. Evelyn Davis. I am Dr. Evelyn Davis, and today we're continuing our conversation on the 8 dimensions of self-care. This is part 2 of our New Year, New Me series, and today we're focusing on what I like to call the care side of things. This is not the glamorous kind of self-care, but the kind that actually sustains you. In our last episode, we talked about the self part of the 8 dimensions of self care. And just to remind you, that is the somatic, emotional, luminous, and the financial self care. These dimensions are the ones that help us care for our bodies, process our emotions, and connect to meaning and purpose, and also create stability through mindful financial habits. This week, we're going to be wrapping up the series by discussing the care side of it, which is cognitive, altruistic, relational, and ecological self care. The everyday actions that shape how we think, how we give, how we connect, and how our environment supports us. So let's get into it. We're going to start by looking at the cognitive self care area. So, cognitive self care is about how we care for our minds. It is also how we focus on mental wellness, personal growth, and also continuous learning. And in a world where we're constantly having things that demand our attention, this dimension is often overlooked. When we prioritize cognitive self care, we're able to support our mental clarity, focus, creativity, and also our resilience. This may look like reading a book or something that genuinely interests you, listening to an educational podcast, kind of like this one, taking intentional breaks from multitasking, or learning a new skill, not just for productivity, but simply for curiosity, taking that time to wonder. Researchers studied what happened to people when they agreed to block the internet on their smartphone for just 2 weeks, and 91% reported feeling better after the break. Research also continues to show us that taking intentional rest from screens can improve our overall well-being. I know that's a lot of research that I'm throwing at you, but I want you to hear me out, because outside of hearing what researchers say, I was able to go to a conference and hear someone who experienced this firsthand. His name is Carlos Whitaker, and he went 7 weeks screen free with the monks, Amish, and he described how it not only changed his outlook on life, but also changed his brain. Like, he did brain scans before he did this experiment and after. And it actually showed that there was an improvement in his cognitive functioning. Although when he was going through this, it definitely was a challenge for him. But at the end, he said that it was able to kind of strengthen his cognitive learning, and also show an appreciation for connection just with others. So, this may be your sign to take that social media fast that you've been thinking about. Cognitive care reminds us that our minds deserve care and not just constant consumption. And sometimes when we're constantly consuming things, we start to miss out on a lot. Okay, so our next section that we have here is the altruistic self care. Altruistic self care is about purpose and contribution, but with boundaries. This dimension focuses on giving back, using your strength, and finding fulfillment in what you do without overextending yourself. Healthy altruistic self care includes setting work boundaries, learning to say no and allowing your no to be a no, Delegating what is needed, knowing that you don't have to control every bits and parts of it, and giving back in ways that feel sustainable. Because caring for others shouldn't come at the cost of your own well being. In therapy, one example I often share with clients is the airplane safety rule. When the flight attendants explain oxygen masks, they often tell you to put your own mask on first, even for helping children. It has to be important if they're telling you to do it before you help the child that's sitting beside you. And I know how that can, be difficult for some, because you feel like you have to take care of other people that are around you. But think about it. Not it This is not because the other person or the child around you doesn't matter. It just means that you can't help anyone if you can't breathe. And I want you to reflect on that. Think about it. If you are not able to care for yourself, to pour into your cup, how can you truly be able to pour into others if you are empty? And the same principle applies off the plane too. You're not serving yourself or anyone else because burnout is not a badge of honor. It is a signal to let you know that you need to care for yourself. This shows up a lot when it comes to relationships. So, our next area is relational self care. Relational self care focuses on nurturing supportive relationships. This includes building a strong support system, spending time with people who matter, and just as importantly, setting boundaries. I cannot stress that enough, the importance of setting boundaries in your life. It also means that recognizing when relationships no longer align with your growth. Relational self care helps us to feel emotionally supported, reduce relational stress, protect our energy or our peace. These are so important when we're connecting to each other and then also thinking of our self care. I want to gently challenge you, though, as you reflect on this area, to really evaluate the people in your life. What comes to mind is an example that I heard from the show Welcome to Dairy. Yes, the show about it. Um, and one of the characters talk about how there are two types of people in your life. You have the lifeboats, and then you also have the anchors. The lifeboats help to keep you afloat, and the anchors weigh you down. Think about it. Who around you lifts you up in your times of need? And then who are those people who kind of weigh you down, who are not as supportive or make those little sly comments when you bring something to them that you're truly excited about? The reason I share this is that healthy relationships aren't supposed to drain you. They're supposed to support you just like a lifeboat. So if you do this evaluation and you realize that some people that, even though they are near and dear to your heart, and maybe even blood relatives, or maybe a friend that has always been there, you reevaluate what they're giving to you in your life. Sometimes we have times where relationships where we're sinking. People who we were able to go to before are not the people who we have in our current season. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes in these seasons where we can feel people holding us down, we continue to have these relationships with them out of kind of loyalty rather than what we need in that season. So I'm not telling everybody to do the cutoff culture. I'm just telling you to reevaluate and then also start to have conversations, because also in relational self care, Like in setting boundaries, we also have to practice assertiveness and being able to communicate what our needs are. And it's a relationship because you could be the person that needs the boundaries being set for, not the person that needs to set the boundaries. Another thing about boundaries is being able to listen to other people's needs too. It's not a one-way street. It's both. It's a give and it's a get. That's why it's relational because it takes two to be able to have that. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next one, which is ecological self care. So, ecological self care is about knowing how your surroundings impact your well being. This also includes your home, your workspace, and your community. I'm going to ask you this question. Have you ever felt almost paralyzed by your environment? I know sometimes I do, um, because there's clutter, chaos, disorganization, and that can quietly increase stress. For instance, I'm a person who needs to write things down in my planner, my happy planner. If, um, that's what I use to kind of keep my life afloat. And I forgot to order the thing before the month of December was over. And I felt lost. I went to the point where I was looking on my iPad to see if there was a app or something that could help hold me over until I got my happy planner. So that's my way of being organized and being able to look at what I need for my ecological self care because calm, supportive environments can help regulate your nervous system. And I know there are some people out there that have ADHD and may have harder times being able to self-regulate when it comes to these things because you may hit a wall, but that is also why it's important to find what works for you. For me, to keep me focused and to keep my environment organized, that's just one way I use it by using a planner. And that's also what makes ecological self-care so important. Um Other ways to do that is ecological self care might include decluttering your space, creating a small area dedicated to rest, adding structure through simple supportive routines, giving back to your community. All of these things work together to help create that sense of safety, calm, and stability. Your environment should ultimately support you, not overwhelm you. So that's why it's so important to utilize these methods to be able to create that ecological safety for you. So we are coming to the close. And as I close today, I want to invite you to reflect, not to fix. Reflect. Reflect on which of the care dimensions feels most neglected right now, and do that without judgment, without pressure, and just awareness. Remember, we listen and we don't judge. That also applies to you. Listen to yourself, don't judge, don't beat up on yourself if you're not doing the best, because remember, we're looking at these 8 dimensions of self care not to fix everything, but to have a roadmap on how we can improve ourselves, the world around us, all of that. Because awareness is the first act of care. So let me say that again. Self care is not about doing everything right, it's about caring intentionally, especially in the areas that quietly shape our daily life. I want to thank you for spending this time with me, for coming back. And I want you to be sure to check out the mini episode where I will be sharing many ways to sustain what you learned today. If these episodes resonate with you, consider sharing them with someone who might need a gentler approach to self care this year. Remember to stay grounded and remember also that you deserve care too. Until next time, stay mindful. Thank you for listening to Stay Mindful with Dr. Evelyn Davis. You can follow the podcast on Podbean, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And if today's episode helped you, leave a review or share it with someone who uses it. Until next time, stay mindful.